Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 240 chainsaw. Customer complaint is that he can't get it started. So looking inside the fuel tank, initially the fuel doesn't look terrible. Let's pour it out into our funnel and see what it looks like. It's got a nice color to it. And if we shine a light down in the bottom, there's no water in it. So I doubt that the problem was that the fuel he put in was bad. There could have been old fuel underneath it, I suppose, but I can't smell it, and I can't tell from looking at his sample. What I saw inside there, I guess I'm going to put that on hold and see what the rest of the saw looks like before I start looking at replacing a filter or a fuel line or something like that. What I'd like to do is pop the spark plug out and see what the condition of the piston and cylinder are. Initially, looking under the hood here, that was a quick glance at the spark arrestor screen. It's a little dusty maybe. It's not bad. Spark plug looks like it was recently replaced. Probably in an effort to make this thing run better. Maybe he had it going for a little bit or something. I'm not sure. Seems like lately the work orders are kind of a mystery. Got to figure out, they're minimal information kind of things. Won't start, won't run, runs bad, needs tune up, something like that. And I guess if they really knew more than that, they probably fix it themselves, right? So anyway, the piston and cylinder look good. There's no scoring or evidence of a lot of wear. So we're gonna dig into the fuel system on this one. I want to remove the handle. You'll notice there's 3 screws and one's a short one. That short one was closest to the rear there. Now the proper way to disconnect this throttle linkage from the trigger is not what you're going to see here. There's a cover on the side of the trigger handle with a couple of screws. You can remove those screws, easily disconnect this linkage. I'm always looking for a shortcut, and I just took it. Every time I remove one of these handles, I check these 2 screws. Every time I check them, they're loose. One of them uses the Torx bit. The other one is a 7mm nut. There's a small screw that holds a cover plate. Sometimes this is a T10 or 15. Sometimes it's a Phillips. Actually, I think it's a T20 I'm using there. Depending on what year the saw is, it could be different style screw head. So there we go. A little dirty. Probably never been taken apart or cleaned. I blew it out and we can move forward. This single screw holds the air filter in place. And looking at the filter, it's kind of dingy, and we'll take a closer look at that later. Now there's 3 screws that hold this air filter base in place. This first one is a T20. We'll get that out. It's a pretty long screw. And the next 2 are 10mm nuts. These are flanged nuts. And once we have those off, we're going to be able to remove that air filter base. You'll see here in a second. So there goes the base. The choke lever is left in place. Everything looks normal here. The fuel lines aren't trashed. Quick little spritz to remove the schmutz. All right, there's a fuel line on this side, and we just popped it off of the carburetor. There's our choke lever, the blue handle. And we got it. We just throwed it off to the side, I guess. So I was inspecting the fuel line there. Again, not cracked or brittle or anything like that, just old. Right now I'm checking the tightness of the insulator screws. You can call it an intake manifold if you want. So there's our throttle rod. Blow some more schmutz off the carburetor. And we'll load this up on our handy dandy carb stand. So what you're going to see me do here is, first I'm inspecting the carburetor, but then I'm going to scribe it. And that does two things for me. When I inspected it, there was no scribe mark. That means I hadn't been in this saw personally. And when I go to put it back together, that cover plate and that black plastic piece, I don't have to think about orienting them. I just line up my scribe mark. I probably don't need to do that anymore. But when I first started working on these things a long time ago, that's how I remembered how they went back together. You'll see I just took my screwdriver there and I was kind of magnetizing it. It's a magnet on the back of the carb stand. All right, this cover's stuck down. We're just going to pry it off of here. There we go. And there's our metering diaphragm. And it's stiff as a board. Let's pop it off of there. This might win, it's definitely in the top 5 of stiff metering diaphragms for me. Check this thing out. It's pretty stiff. When they click like that, yeah, you definitely found your problem. The diaphragm is either not able to move and open the metering lever and the needle, or it's holding it open all the time and creating a flooding condition. So anytime you got a metering diaphragm like that, you absolutely have to replace it. So I'm looking up my kit. We got a, what was it, a Zama C1 something or other. Here's our kit at RB149. Now, the reason I don't get real specific on what model carb that was is that there was a long run of 240s and 235s that all looked the same. They didn't all necessarily use the same model carburetor. So we're just going to put a kit in here. I'm cleaning the new needle. The reason I do that is I believe there's some kind of protective coating on that rubber tip. Here's the screw that holds the cross shaft on the metering lever. We're going to loosen this up. And then we can lift the lever and the cross shaft and the needle right out of the carburetor. And I'm going to use the old cross shaft and lever. The only time I replace the lever is if there's a lot of wear on the end of it where the metering diaphragm touches it. This one looks clean, so I'm just going to reuse it. It's going to most likely be at the correct height, so I probably won't have to make an adjustment. And it's, if you don't see the wear on the end there, I mean, no big deal. Just reuse it. So now we're going to put down our metering chamber base gasket and our new metering diaphragm. On these particular carbs, you can very easily put these gaskets in the wrong way. So take a look at the one you removed. In fact, when you remove it, you might want to keep that orientation so that you don't have to line things back up. Years ago, I've put them together wrong, and they might start, but they will not run right. This is my biggest pet peeve, when these gaskets won't come off. Because it's a lot of messing around to get that gasket off of there. Some gasket remover and razor blade, and about 5 minutes of time. We'll get it to look like this one here. Now that it's clean, we can put our new gasket on it. And our new fuel pump membrane. And then, I don't know what they call this piece. I'm going to call it the thingamajobber. We put the thingamajobber in place. There's a screw that holds it there. I should probably look up the name of that thing. If I do, I'll put it up here in on the video. So we're going to replace all the fuel lines, so I'll cut this one off of here. I'm using my handy dandy custom made fuel line removal tool. It's a hollow tube from a drive shaft of a string trimmer, just kind of ground to a shape I thought would work good for popping fuel lines. Then I pushed an old Craftsman screwdriver handle on it. Alright, is it lined up properly? Do I have it on the right way? Yeah, just look at the scribe mark and I'll know. Don't have to think about it. Alright, now we can screw this cover back down. Alright, our carb is done. Now we're going to work on fuel lines. Because I know I'm replacing that line, I just cut the filter off of it, and then I'll pull the line out. There's a rubber grommet on the top of the tank. And in this case, well, here's our return line. We'll pull that out too. Can't just pull it out though, because there is a fitting on the end of it. You'll see it here in a second. There we go. And I guess that's put there just to keep that line from getting knocked out of the hole there. It's not like it's going to just fall out on its own, but that's the way they put them together. We use our handy dandy tool again to pop this line off. And then we're just going to clean up the tank vent. There's a bronze bushing there. And it had a lot of dirt on top of it. So we wanted to clean that off. Now I'm going to cut a taper on the end of a fuel line. And don't ask me in the comments what size line it is, because I don't know. I don't remember. I just go into the parts room and grab line off a bulk reel. Alright, so I've pushed it through the hole in the top of the tank. And now I'm going to pull it through far enough. And this is a tight fit. But I'm going to pull it through far enough that I can flush cut it and then put that fitting on the end of the line. I dropped the line. There it is. So we'll flush cut it. Put that little stopper fitting on there. Looks good. And then I'll just pull the slack back out. You don't have to pull the fitting up tight to the bottom of the tank, but get it up close. The primer bulb looks like it's seen better days, so we're going to put a new primer bulb in it. If you're barking at the screen saying it's a purge bulb, yeah, whatever, it's a purge bulb. It just doesn't matter to me what we call it. We all know what it does. It moves air out of the fuel lines in the carburetor. What it doesn't do is inject raw fuel into the cylinder to start it. That means that you can pump on that primer bulb all day long and not flood the engine. So here's our rubber grommet where the main line with the filter on it would pass through the tank. And it was kind of loose. And there it goes into the garbage can. So here's a new grommet, and I'm dropping it in the hole, and it just dropped right in there. So the new one's kind of loose as well. Look, I can pop it out real easy here with my finger, and that's probably going to leak fuel. And we don't want that. So I've been using this product called Seal All, and it's fuel resistant and it works pretty good. And no, I don't get paid to advertise Seal All. I just like the product and want to tell you about it. So I've coated the grommet with the Seal All. And we'll drop it into the hole of the tank there. Of course, now that I got glue all over it, it doesn't just drop in. But there you go. That's what it looks like. A little bit of the product oozed out around the edge of the grommet. That will dry, not hard. It'll stay like you could put a thumbnail into it, you know. But it will resist fuel. So now I'm pushing my new fuel line down through the grommet. This is going to have the filter on it. We'll pull it through the tank. We'll pull it through the tank. There we go. Flush cut it and put a new filter on it. And then I'll pull out the slack. I want to leave that filter so it lays on the bottom of the tank. I also kind of want to get it so that that hose isn't right by the opening of the tank. Which sometimes means that you have to just give the hose a twist or something so that the natural bend in it from being on a roll is facing the other way. Alright, let's put our carburetor back on. First we got to figure out which way's up. And then we're going to measure about how much fuel line we need. We're going to go underneath the carburetor on this, and the fitting is on this near side. There we go. And just, you know, you got some line in the tank, so if you off by a ½ inch, it doesn't matter. You can pull line in or out of the tank to adjust for what you have on top here. So now there's going to be a line that runs from the carburetor to the purge bulb. We'll connect our fuel filter line. Install the carb. The gasket is already on there. Install our choke lever because this won't go on once we push the carb in. Same with the throttle rod. And now we can measure the length for our fuel line to the, let's see, I called it primer bulb, then I called it purge bulb. Now I'll call it primer bulb again. I really don't care what you call it. All right. And this is going on the short fitting. The long fitting always is the return back to the tank. That looks good. It's not in the way of any linkage. Now I just want to clean the schmutz off the air filter box. All right. We got to get our choke lever tucked up underneath our stop switch. You'll see later that those two kind of work together. When you pull the choke out, it lifts the stop switch into the run position. All right, we're going to get our air filter box bolted down. I like these flange nuts because you can just load them into the socket or driver, whatever you're using, and then get them started. If it wasn't a flange nut, you'd probably have to start it by hand and then put the socket on there and turn it. It isn't a big deal, but it's nice. Working on this stuff all day, every day. It's nice when you get a little easy break on something. All right, this is a T20 Torx. We'll tighten that down. Looks like our throttle linkage is correct. We'll put this end cover on. One end just tucks into a slot and the other end's got that screw. You just got to find the slot. There we go. I almost had my hand on the screw, I thought. Oh, that's a different screw. All right, this one in this case is a T20, I believe. And here's our air filter. Now, are we going to keep it or are we going to get rid of it? So I can see light through this filter, but I know that thing's pretty dirty, and I'm going to show you a comparison. Look how much more light I can see through a new one. So that filter's getting replaced, and they're not that expensive. It just sits in front of that air filter holder. This grate kind of holds it in place. There's a notch on the bottom for a tab and then a single screw on top to lock it down. That looks good. So we've got new fuel lines, carb kit. We're going to hook the throttle linkage into the trigger handle. Goes together pretty easy. Much easier than it came apart. We're going to put a long screw in this top anti-vibe. We're going to put a short screw in this rear anti-vibe. And it makes a difference. If you put a long screw in here, you have the potential for that handle to flex far enough for a long screw to hit the bottom of the fuel tank and maybe even wear a hole in it. All right, we're going to put some fuel in here and see if this thing starts and runs. And probably make a couple carb adjustments. And in the end, I'll take it out in a log and do the fine tuning, but we won't see that on video. So that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna 240 chainsaw. It wouldn't start for the customer because it had a stiff metering diaphragm. Thanks for watching. Later. We've purged all the air out.